In a quiet, unassuming village, a legend had been passed down for generations. The elders told of a ghostly figure known as Bloody Mary, a woman with a tragic past whose spirit, they said, roamed restless. According to the legend, if anyone dared to call her name in the dead of night while standing before a mirror, her ghostly image would appear, full of sorrow, seeking justice, or perhaps revenge. The villagers whispered about her with dread, passing down the story as both a cautionary tale and a challenge.
One night, a group of friends gathered in an old house on the outskirts of the village. The house was quiet and far from prying eyes, making it the perfect place for a thrill-seeking adventure. Their friend Layla, known for her curiosity and boldness, suggested they try calling Bloody Mary. The friends exchanged nervous glances, each hesitant but intrigued, until one by one, they agreed. After all, it was just a story, wasn't it? They moved into a dark bathroom, shutting the door behind them. A single candle flickered, casting haunting shadows on the walls, amplifying the tension in the air. Layla glanced around, her voice barely a whisper. Once we call her, there's no turning back. But this will be a story we'll never forget. The others took deep breaths, their reflections staring back at them from the mirror as the clock neared midnight. They were about to challenge the unknown, and their anticipation filled the room like a heavy fog.
At the stroke of midnight, Layla faced the mirror. Her voice wavered as she began, "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." With each repetition, the atmosphere grew heavier, and the silence in the room became unnerving. The friends could hear their own breathing, loud and shaky, echoing around them. Shadows began to shift, the candlelight flickering as though reacting to some unseen presence. For a long moment, nothing happened, and they began to relax, thinking it was all in their heads, until something emerged in the mirror.
Slowly, mist began to form along the edges of the mirror, swirling and taking shape. A pale, ghostly face materialized within the fog, her eyes dark and filled with rage and sorrow. Her long hair floated as if underwater, giving her a haunting, otherworldly look. The friends froze, paralyzed by fear as they realized they were no longer alone. They were captivated by her gaze, unable to look away, as though the mirror itself held them in a trance, binding them to this spectral figure who stared back at them with chilling intensity. In an instant, the silence was shattered by a blood-curdling scream emanating from the mirror, reverberating through the room. It was a sound filled with agony, one that pierced their hearts and sent shivers down their spines. One of the friends instinctively tried to open the door, but it was locked, as though held shut by some invisible force. They could feel the walls closing in, the air thick with an ancient and malevolent presence. The scream echoed again, filling them with a terror unlike anything they'd ever known. Layla, who had been so brave moments ago, felt as though her spirit was being gripped by an icy hand. Bloody Mary's gaze seemed to focus on her alone, piercing into her soul. Layla tried to cry out, but her voice was gone, swallowed by the oppressive energy of the mirror. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the screaming and the apparition vanished. The room was silent once more, but the friends knew something had changed. Something dark and unexplainable had touched them that night. The friends stumbled out of the bathroom, their faces pale and haunted. They were shaken to the core, feeling as though they had witnessed something beyond the natural world. But Layla seemed different. Her eyes held a strange emptiness, as if part of her soul had been left behind in that mirror, forever tied to the spirit of Bloody Mary. Her friends worried for her, but she brushed it off, laughing nervously. Yet, deep down, she knew something had followed her from that room. In the days that followed, Layla was plagued by vivid nightmares. In her dreams, she saw Bloody Mary, standing by the mirror, her face twisted with rage and sorrow. She would speak in whispers that Layla couldn't quite make out, yet the words left her with an unshakable feeling of dread. Layla became withdrawn, afraid to look into mirrors, sensing that Bloody Mary's spirit hadn't finished with her. Her friends noticed the change in her, but they, too, were haunted by memories of that night, afraid to speak of what they'd seen. One dark night, Layla vanished without a trace. Her friends searched for her, but all they found was her room, untouched, and a cold, eerie silence. When they finally braved to look in her bathroom mirror, they saw faint handprints, ghostly and faded, as though someone had tried to reach through the glass. From that night on, strange whispers echoed through the village, warning people never to look into mirrors at night, for Bloody Mary's spirit was still searching, still bound to claim another soul, drawn by anyone who dared to call her name.